Hello, this is GMA Tank with the Painting with Commentary video for the Mantic Games Kings of War-Basilean Phoenix, featured in Paint to Life episode 19. If you missed that episode, you can check out the story of Solaris in the link here. As for now, let's get assembling? Yes, this is the first time I've painted, not the first, I guess the zombie T-Rex and Zariel were assembled as well. It is the first time I've painted a Kings of War miniature though. It did not pick the model as much as I do like it. It was picked by the owner of Phoenix Rising in St. Catharines, who is the commissioner of this commission, if you will. So in case you're painting one for your own use, it comes in this handy little bag. Keep away from small squirrels. And the pieces, I think there are 5 on some sprues. It's very good quality resin. The pieces are very sharp and brittle. Like you wouldn't want to drop a piece, it would shatter on the floor, I'm sure. There's his head, and there's one of his chicken legs. So, anytime I do one of these, the first thing I'll do is I'll, kind of inspect them all, visually decide how it all goes together. I mean, it's not like it's from IKEA. The base is just a square board. Next thing you're going to do is you have to take those pieces and prepare them. Now I'm preparing them, obviously cutting off the sprues here, but first you should wash them. You should wash them with soap and water, rinse them thoroughly, let them dry so they're 100% dry. And you'll want to do that because any of the manufacturing residue that might remain on the piece will cause the paint to not adhere. So when cutting pieces off of sprue, always cut a little bit higher than you need to. You can use a knife to trim it later, but if you cut it too close to the model or too flush, what you'll end up having is potential warping of the model. And again, full disclosure, disclosure. I don't do much Warhammer. I have assembled a Necron army before and did that. That was some interesting times. But obviously the Nozzles miniatures that I paint for Paint to Life, they're all pre-primed and pre-painted. Not pre-painted. Pre-primed, pre-assembled. So I'm not like the go-to guy for this, but let's learn together. I'll tell you, there's a piece that looks like a stabilizing pole. So just kind of look over the Phoenix, and I really did like this sculpt. The fire has a very organic look to it. It goes really well with the Phoenix in general. And oh yeah, look at those big honking sprues. I'm like, can I even use these little scissors for this? Yeah, those are good snips. I'm not a tool snob. Again, I got a lot of good deals to get these things, but I do like those Citadel snips. I've had other hobby snips from Army Painter. They were just not nearly as... These just feel good in your hand, so if you're considering buying snips, the Citadel snips, they have a nice flat edge, they feel weighty, they feel quality, and they're sharp, and they have really good spring action, so when you make this scissor motion, it bounces right back. But again, I don't do much, so this is the extent of it. As you can see, it handles those. Look, that's a good 1/4 inch. Handles those without problem. But I am going to need to use my hobby knife and smooth these things out, as we will see here shortly. Let's see. Yeah, just looking. Yeah, that's right. There was some, I'm thinking, what's happening here? Right. There were some spots. See, that's like a flake almost of resin, which I didn't notice at first. And then I realized, oh, geez. And this is also hollow. So when I washed it, there was some water inside. So I had to leave it for a while to dry fully. And otherwise, there we go. So now I'm going to dry assemble the pieces. This is always something you should do. Now, again, I always suggest you wear your safety gloves like I do with my invisible pair there. Always cut away from yourself and be chill. Don't be crazy, honey bunny. You don't want to cut your finger off. And I mean, that would be such an embarrassing mistake. You go to the hospital with a big gash on your finger, and there's a video to show it. But yeah, just go slow. Get a nice sharp knife. Wear gloves if you must, or if you should. If you're not comfortable, that's fine. And then I'm just scraping the edge of this to try and smooth it out. So you always want to dry assemble these things before you glue them together, because you want to make sure you understand how the pieces all work. You're going to see if you have any mold lines, not mold lines, seams, big seams that you're going to have to fill, which will happen sometimes. Also, In the case of this Phoenix, while I was assembling it, this part, you know, maybe it was a little butted up against and it was causing there to be a big gap. So by shaving that down a little and I try and put it back together, now I get a smoother connection than I had before. See, I'm trying to figure out how does this go back in there? Yeah, I'm like, oh jeez, what the hell? Well, there it is, right? See? Yeah, that's better. I shaved off the part that was causing it to stick up. In fact, I had no seams on this. I didn't use any type of green stuff or milliput. The seams were all pretty tight, and that's, I think, because I shaved so much of the pieces so that they were a nice close fit. And again, some of you guys who assemble Warhammer stuff, you probably know a lot more about this than I do. But again, I had pretty good luck with this Phoenix and no filling required. I think that's everyone's goal. So now we're into the priming stage. I assemble it, glue it all together with super glue, and I prime it with the Citadel Chaos Black. Why black? Some people might say, and I'll answer that because I don't know. Let's see. Oh yeah, and this is a Dorn yellow. So why black? You know that yellow is a very tricky color to paint, or maybe you don't, and if you don't, now you do. Yellow is practically transparent. This Dorn yellow is a very light yellow. I'm putting it on first, and when it dries, it will have black streaks underneath it because it's somewhat transparent. So why didn't you just prime it white, Jim, Tank? Then you wouldn't see that, and you're probably true. Except that I didn't mind the black streaks. They added a certain je ne sais quoi to the fire effect. I mean, fire is very bright, yes, but when it's all got all these little crevices and all these little shadows, it made a really cool three-dimensional look to the finished model. And I tried to capture it in the pictures as best I could, but in real life, it's very noticeable. And the feathers and whatnot. The paint that I wanted to use for the feathers works well on a dark color as well. So I thought I would paint it right on the black primer. So nevertheless, do I regret it in black? No. Would it have worked in white? Maybe. I certainly wouldn't have had to do as many coats of this Dorn yellow and the next yellow as I did, because I definitely went over and over and over. Now understand part 2 of this Phoenix. Fire, it's darker at the outside and brighter yellow in the middle. So fire has a tendency to turn to smoke, well, dark, or the flames, the bright white hot yellow in the center, and then it goes kind of orange, and then it kind of turns more orange and reddy, and then finally it turns into smoke. Whatever's being combusted smokes away. So you want to make sure that your first coat, as in this case, this Dorn yellow, I'm going through now. What I'm painting there eventually is going to be painted over as well, but I'm trying to find all the pits. Okay. Now there are a lot, and I spent a lot of time. I didn't even film it all, and this is the extended version of the painting version. It's almost 30 minutes for you guys to listen to me yammer, but I tried to find all the pits. Look at all those little tadpole looking things. I found a pit, stuck my brush in, spun it around, tried to get as much of the Dorn yellow in there as I could. And you'll notice the light just changed, and I'll explain that in a second. So now I'm on the other side, and I've done the back. I'm doing the pits because that's going to be the brightest part of the fire. And then the next yellow will layer on top, and then the orange will layer on top, and then the red will layer on top, and then the umber will layer on top, etc. But these little pits, once they're identified and kind of started with Dorn, they're going to be like that from now on. Okay? And as I got to this point, I realized just how much more fun I think this job would be with an airbrush. When I looked online to see other people having painted this, there weren't tons of examples of it, but they were all airbrushed, the ones I saw. And I mean, you imagine an airbrush, you just there's your yellows, and then some more yellow, some orange, some red. You can do really cool transitions. I think this project would lend itself really well to an airbrush, except for maybe these little pockets. These little pockets might be a little tricky with the airbrush. You would definitely want to prime it white then, or else any pocket would show up as like a black hole, right? So another thing, we have good light when we paint. I'm sure you do too. I have lots of lights because I'm filming it. I want it to be nice and bright. You see there's a like a spotlight on this. Because this was black primed and because it has all these little pockets, I couldn't actually see inside the pockets. They were like little teeny shadow chambers. So I got myself a headlamp. And the headlamp I wear on my head, it looks like this. Okay? And you can like drop it down so when you wear it and you're looking down, it's shining down right at your hands. I don't think you need to use this all the time, but for a project like this or something where your head might cast a shadow of your light onto your work, I would definitely suggest some kind of headlamp to help illuminate those hard to see little spots. I know some people paint with super magnifying glasses. I don't, probably because I usually paint, like I've been painting bigger things, so they're not so, the fine details, there's lots of room for error. When you start painting little teeny 28mm miniatures, I get it. I know why people would want to use those things, and that's cool. But I don't. The headlamp, though, was a first, and I'm glad I have it. So yeah, again, I'll also say, you know, if you guys are painting right now, listen to this, cool. I'm going to be honest with you. I was not having a good time while I was filming this part here. I was not happy. I saw all this Dorn yellow. I think this thing looks like a streamer being blown out of a cannon, or I don't know. I almost got sad, you know, like I'm getting kind of downtrodden. I'm starting to think, oh, what am I doing here? Like, there's so much of this. It just goes on and on over 2 days to paint, or not days, right, guys? I have a day job too, but my nights go from when the kids go to bed, I can paint till I'm starting to fall asleep, right? So it was like 4 hours of assembly and then painting, and when you're done with it and you look at what you have and you just see this, what you see on the screen right now, it does not look super appealing. And I think I have a shot of it in process at this point, so I'm gonna just tag the video here and come back and I'll throw one in for you to see when I was finished. But I want to share with you that I overcame it, and you should too. When you're painting something and you realize it looks like dog shit, stop, go have a drink, smoke a joint, or just say a prayer, whatever makes you happy. Go back to it with fresh eyes. Because ultimately, this was one of my favorite miniatures when it was finished. It got the most response on social media. I've gotten more love from all the different people in my life who don't give a shit about Dungeons and Dragons, but they like my miniatures. This one, it takes the cake. And at this point in it, I was just ready to just throw it in the garbage and tell Phoenix, sorry bro, I'm not skilled enough to do this. And I didn't. I just hammered through. Look, I think this is the next day. I tried look, I'm using a bigger brush. I'm like, maybe I need a bigger brush. So I'm using a fatter brush now. I can put more on. And I'm realizing, oh, I'm cheating. So I went back to my small brush. The bigger brush was not the answer. If you wanted to cover the whole thing in Dorn yellow, just paint the whole thing Dorn yellow, which is not what I was trying to do. I was trying to get, see how it looks in there at the bottom? I wanted to get all these little teeny grooves Dorn yellow. In the bottoms, in the valleys, in the bottoms of the pits. I want those to be Dorn. Leave the black on top. And because, as I said, the paint is transparent, some of that black will show through and it looks pretty good. So before we switch off to the next color, which is coming up, just remember, guys, this is supposed to be a fun hobby. You take on extra stress if you do commission work or you're doing it for someone, so maybe don't do that if you get stressed out. You should be doing this, put some Netflix on, something you've seen before, just chill, paint and enjoy yourself and enjoy what you create. And every time you do, you learn something from the experience, like I did with this Phoenix. And even if you're feeling like it looks like a potato, you know what? Maybe it does. I got plenty of potatoes on my shelf. But at the end of the day, the next one will look slightly less potato. And we don't all have to win Crystal Brush, some of those, you know, YouTube artists that just blow your mind with their painting. It's not what it's about. It's about painting your stash, putting it on your table for your players or on your shelf, or painting it for a friend or a family member for a gift, something like this. It's the new age macaroni salad, right? You can't make them a macaroni Christmas tree. You can't do that anymore. You're a grown-ass adult. All right, take a look there. See that's a test I tried. We're moving on to Flash Gits Yellow. This is the next yellow. I'm painting right over top of that Dorn. And I cover a lot of the Dorn with this yellow, but that's okay because one, it counts as a second coat, so the yellow underneath is blocking out the black. And two, this yellow is the beginning of the real fire color. And I'm putting it on thin. I mean, thin your paints, right? If you look at my wet palette, I've put some water in with this so that it does go on thin. I'm also covering up some black now because this yellow is not going into the crevices. All that Dorn yellow you see is deep in the sunken crevices. This flash gits can sit on top. So as you see now, it's starting to cover up all the black. And now it's starting to look like a piece of fire. And it's starting to get a little thick. I'm thinking this is good, folks. This is good. I'm using the wider brush too because I don't need the tight brush to go into those corners. I'm putting this on here, and as soon as that black is disappearing, it is looking more like fire. It's like a two-tonal fire effect. Now back to that chest or the breast of the Phoenix, that gold right there. That was my test of the paint that's going to come later in the video. Tested. I just put it right on the black Chaos Black Prime, thinking it would work, and it kind of does. And every time my hand rolls it, you'll see it has a kind of cool effect, but not what I wanted. So I needed to come up with a solution, which I will do shortly. But for now, I'm just going to turn this into a lemon. Again, lots of paint used, lots of yellow. But this yellow is making me happy because I'm starting to see some progress. And yeah, we're going to switch into the orange in a second here. Yeah, and of course a lot of the black you see now, I'm not missing it. Those are feathers. Those are going to be hit with feather color later. That's why they're not hit with the yellow. Okay, so now we're on to the orange. Now, Troll Slayer orange is the color I used, and I gotta tell you something. The yellow is still wet. This is wet blending the two colors. I'm putting that orange wet. It's a little saturated with water, and I'm dipping it into the palette. Not the palette. I'm putting it on the model. See, unfortunately, this time lapse, it's kind of hard to tell. But when you take your Troll Slayer orange on your brush, you load it up, and you dip it onto some Flash Gits yellow that's still wet, and you drag it along. You're kind of swirling both paints at the same time. And if you twist the brush as you do this, you get a cool circular or kind of twisty, well, you guys, some of you know, it's called wet blending. I'm not a painter. I can't give you a tutorial of how to wet blend. All I can tell you is this is what I call the Bob Ross. It's a little bit of titanium white, a little bit of happy trees. Yes, beat the devil out of it. I love Bob Ross. Total ASMR guru. Simply put, Bob Ross is a wet on wet painter, and all it means is that Flash Gits yellow is still wet and it's drying. You can put some, they sell products at the paint stores, retardants. Don't get triggered, that's a word. It slows the paint from drying, and ultimately I didn't use that. I just made sure that I hit the orange on top of the yellow while the yellow had only been down for, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes. It was still moist. I had used water, so it wasn't hard, and it was nice and thin. And this orange, yeah, just start blending. And even just looking at it now, I'm looking at it thinking, damn, yeah. Especially how stark that black looks. It's starting to look like fire, eh, boys and girls? And fish? And space monkeys? And Siri and Google Plus and all you who are listening, and Alexa. Oh, I just triggered my Alexa on my desk. Sorry, Alexa, go away. Anyways, yeah, so there we go. This entire Phoenix was done with 7 paints, which is kind of a trip because over my shoulder right now I'm looking at my red dragon, and that's next week's video, episode 20, and how many pots do I have out? 40 already? Jesus. Alright, next step, next color, Wild Rider Red. Now, these are going to get quicker all the way till the end because now, see, this coverage is there. The Troll Slayer orange is still wet, and the Wild Rider Red is going on wet blend again. Just consider something. When a fire, as I told you, the outermost edge is the darker, so I don't want to cover this whole bird in red. I only want to keep it on the outside zones, right? The tips of these flames. So the front of the phoenix, and I'm holding him up on his feet. The front of the phoenix, the back of the phoenix, the top of the wing, the top of the ass, the top of the tail, that's got to get hit with the red. The bottom, the top, anywhere where those flames apex into a little teeny point, we want to cap that with some of that Wild Rider red. And I like that instead of the Corn red or Mephisto red, because those are too red. Wild Rider red has lots of orange in it. It looks very natural with the Troll Slayer and Flash kits. I like to, well, I mean, take a look. How's that look to you guys? Does that look like fire? It looks like fire to me. And I'm seriously getting excited by this point in the project, seeing it all come together. Any type of inhibition that I had is long gone, but it's time to work on the feathers. I'm done with my Wild Rider red. So, Tuskgore fur. Tuskgore fur. That's the color. Why? Well, let me tell you why. That's a brown, yes. It has a lot of red in it. It's a very Ron Burgundy, or as my friend Alex would say, Burgundy. I can't remember. He's in my D&D group. He made an Eric Cochra and named it Ron Burgundy. Whatever. Tuskgore brown is the brown I'm using because it has lots of red in it, so it blends in with the fire theme, and it is a great underlying color for the secret weapon of this whole project, which is the next transition. The Tuskgore brown, I tried it. Remember I showed you how I tried to use the secret weapon on the black and it just didn't happen? Tuskgore works beautifully because once you put the next color on it, it is the perfect underlayer for this particular application to let the gold come out to play. So I'm putting it on, and I'm realizing that this video is going to speed up right through to the end, so I should consider anything else I wanted to tell you guys. Tuskgore. Okay, well, I'm going to start talking about the secret weapon. Green Stuff World in Spain, their website Green Stuff World, they have some pearlescent paints. And pearlescent is the type of paint that changes color depending on the angle of the light that you see it at, okay? So I actually bought, months ago, a paint specifically for this project, knowing it was coming. It was called Burning Gold. And when you look at it in life, now it looks gold in my pictures and in my video, true. But if I showed it to you in real life, and if you go to Phoenix Rising, downtown St. Catharines, you can see it yourself if you're local. In real life, the actual burning gold, depending on the angle you see it, it shines between orange and yellow, but still looks gold. And that's the pearlescent effect, okay? And that was the money for this. Okay, so what am I using? Averland Sunset for the beak and for the claws. Straight up Averland with a little bit of Agrax Earthshade on top for some definition of some of that chicken feet action. Excuse me, the claws I left black with a little bit of Eshin Gray as a layer. Again, you guys can do whatever you want. You want them to look like a KFC bird, you can do a chicken beak. You want them to look like a silver bird, you do that. Funny, one of the commenters on YouTube said he's got a ski mask on. It's funny, he does. The Basilian Phoenix is wearing armor just over his eyes, almost like a falcon. And it's right here. Iron Warriors, I think I used. No. Oh, we're moving to Burning Gold. We'll do that later. So here we go. Green Stuff World. Burning Gold is what I was telling you. You can see it going on, covering that Tuskgore fur and turning it into a gold color. And I think it's bringing up some of that red. It's a little transparent itself, but it's bringing it up just enough that I'm looking at like, dang. Now, you kind of lose some of the contrast, and some of the other people who have painted this model before kept a difference in contrast between the feathers and the fire. But when this guy finishes in that gold, the pearlescent gold, it looks like the Hunger Games, bro. Hunger Games. Chariot, she comes out with her, or whatever, and she's on fire. That's what I see. I think it looks awesome. I was really happy. So here I am, putting the burning gold on top of the Tuskgore fur wherever there was any, front and back. Iron Warriors, there she is on the front. His ski mask, as that guy said, or not ski mask, ski goggles. Averland Sunset Beacon Claws not shown. It was shown, Yachet. It was earlier. So yeah, a Basilean Phoenix from this game. I guess it's a unit, so it has this like iron mask on, so it can't see. I also did the tongue, and I did a little bit of a dry brush on the mask, and then a little bit of yellow shade to make the mask look reflective. Okay, so here's the base. I'm building it up with Agaras Dunes, or whatever that just said that passed. I usually like to go crazy with my bases, not this time, because this base is going on a shelf in a store, and I also think I might want to use it in the game, and there's no sense in building it on a massive oval unit that he's never going to be able to play with. One of the downsides of building up a big base like a diorama for your minis is if you put it on the D&D table, it doesn't work really for scale anymore. So once that dries, I flocked a bunch of grass on it. I put a real rock on it. And now for the wingtips, Dryad bark. That's the color I used. You can see, I guess I didn't film myself doing that, but see the tops of the tips, Dryad bark was the color. That's like the umber effect. And again, I wet blended it with the Wild Rider red. So some lowland shrubs, scrag brown. I'm dry brushing brown around the base, and I'm also going to dry brush on some black around the base to make it look like this phoenix is nuking the shit out of the grass and killing it because of the heat that's coming off of them. And in the finished product, you can clearly see that. It looks like the grass is all dead. So not the greatest shot of the base, I know, but you'll see in the finished product here. And I'm sorry I missed getting those wingtips, but there's not that many, and you guys, by this point, it'll just happen for you. Just blend that Dryad bark in with the red. And here it is, the Basilean Phoenix, known as Solaris, Paint to Life, episode 19. Up against my black velvet background, he's awesome. There's that gold. You can see the different colors of gold. That's even more striking in real life. I'll say one other thing. You know, there was a lot of backpedaling in this job because there was lots of black showing through that I had to touch up. But you know what? It was easy to see, and I got it all. Here he is from another angle. You can see his Iron Warrior's ski goggles are slightly yellowed as I put a little bit of yellow shade on it to just kind of make it look. And you can see the Eshin gray on his black claws. There's some little flowers behind the rock there. You know, you can build your base to taste. Here he is from the back. 7. All right. Again, the tips, don't overdo it. Just a nice little black on there, a little brown, I should say, umber. And there's the back, and see how cool that looks. It looks like the grass is all burning but not on fire, just from the heat. And finally, his backside, completely from the back, including his tail. Well, that's it for this painting with commentary video. Please like, share, comment below your thoughts, guys. I'm GMA Tank. I really look forward to seeing you again next time. Hope everyone in your family is safe. Wash your hands, people, and we'll talk to you again.